Hi, Efrain.
Hi,
It's
Melissa.
so good to have you here at the Cine Las Americas Film Festival in Austin. And I wrote a piece about you in April and about your groundbreaking filmmaking that you did in the 70s, the first Chicano full-length feature film. And it's really great to see you, and you're showing your films through Sunday. So if anybody's in Austin, you should come out to Cine Las Americas and see Efrain's films showing. And I wanted to ask you, first of all, and it's good to have you here, about how your films are being received. I know, I think you had the first showing on Wednesday?
Yesterday. Yes.
And how did that go? How were your films
great.
received?
I mean, I always, I enjoy talking to people, and like I tell them, I don't mind, whatever bothers them or whatever that they didn't like or they did. I enjoy talking to people. So we had, I think I stayed like about almost an hour talking to the people here. So, and they were all so nice, and I'm very impressed that there's so many educators. I've met 4 or 5 professors that have come by and talked to me, and one from UT San Antonio even came down. So, I am so overwhelmed with the reception we're getting. So very, very positive, very happy with it.
And the film that showed on Wednesday was Please Don't Bury Me Alive, correct?
Yes.
And can you talk a little bit about that film and what year you made it and when it came out?
Okay,
what it's about?
Please Don't Bury Me Alive. We started filming around 74, and we released it in 76. It's got a lot of story, but we did that, I guess, because we had never seen Mexican Americans or Chicanos on the screen before, and that had always bothered me, growing up, and we were doing theater, and we realized that nobody was really producing films either in Mexico or in the United States relating to our culture, meaning the Chicano culture, and our Chicano problems that we were running into. And back then we had problems with, the justice system we felt was not equal. Education definitely was not equal. So this was some of the things that were really hurting, still do in the minorities like Chicanos. And with all these problems that are going on, I asked people, why couldn't we make our own movie? I'm talking to people like Ricardo Montalban from that era, who was real popular back then in 70 when I was in Nosotros school that he had in Los Angeles. And then after I talked to Anthony Quinn, Luis Valdez, and everybody was saying, no, it can't be done. Screen Actors Guild, the Writers Guild, don't even think about it. So around that time, I was with another theater group that was run by Emilio Delgado. Emilio is the Milo who comes out in Sesame Street, the first Mexican American. He went on board in 70. He had a TV show in Los Angeles. But before he left to New York to be with Sesame Street, he had taken us to go see Luis Valdez and Teatro Campesino do organize the farm workers to get into the union in San Fernando Valley. That's when it really floored me, and I said, wow, this is awesome, So I started a theater group, and then that was in 71. I came back to San Antonio, and then after that, I started thinking about the possibility of putting it on film, what we were doing in stage, because it's a big hassle taking 20, 15, 10 students, and then most of them are young high school students and having problems. So we said, you know what we're going to do, my partner and I said, let's do a film and take it to the school. So and I'm glad that all these professors are seeing it, because our first intent was not to show it at the theaters, because we didn't think, we wouldn't even imagine that, that people would accept it in theaters. But we said we can show it at the universities, because there was a demand with the teatro, because we toured Midwest, we toured California, we toured Mexico, and it was all through universities mostly that we were presenting our theater. So that was a goal to do that, but when we started filming, we finished, people started saying, hey, you guys are the first making a first independent Chicano movie. And so they said, you know what, well, let's try it at the theaters. And that's when we tried to go to the Mexican theaters, and they turned us down. We went to the American theaters, the English theaters, and Santico and San Antonio, basically they all laughed at us. And Jack Landman, my friend at Trinity University that helped us a lot, said, why don't you four-wall the theaters? So we four-walled the theaters, and I mean, this thing just caught fire. I mean, it just I mean, we were caught off completely off guard. We didn't know what was going on. Because we had, you know, in Diario de Mexico City writes up a story about us. We were invited to TV, and I mean, it just, people wanted to know and hear us. And I think that the reason that it was so successful, because that's a question that everybody mentions, why do you think it was so successful? And, you know, because it's not the greatest film once you see it, you know. It's got a lot of technical problems because we didn't have the equipment. We weren't trained actors. We weren't trained cinematographers. So everything we were doing kind of on-the-job training. And, but I think that when we showed it on the screen, I think Chicanos and Mexican Americans, wherever we went, were just awed by the fact that they were seeing something that they could relate to, and what we say, our own brown faces up on the silver screen, which had never been seen. So with that, you know, Mexico eventually came after us, and it's another story, but I forgot, Agra Sanchez is the guy that bought it from Mexico, and all they did was take it in '76. We had it for like 3 months. We made about $300,000 back then in the 3 months that we had it. They promised us, you know, a lot of money and to take it to Spain, Cuba, and Mexico and all that. But all they did was just take it and shelved it, and the movie was actually never shown again until UCLA found me, and then they wanted to restore it. And long story short, they ended up getting my rights back, and they archived it at UCLA, and they're the ones that have the prints and everything that what they've done for me.
So you bring up how groundbreaking it was to have a film about Mexican Americans in true life, what they were facing, complex issues like poverty, racism, drug addiction, and all these things that weren't being shown on the screen at that time. Do you think that we've come a long way since then, or do you think Mexican Americans still aren't accurately portrayed in media? I
think that, you know, we've made some inroads. I still am very disappointed. I don't see, because I can still, you know, when I was young, we used to say this. I'm talking, when we started, you could count the Latino actors back then, you know, Ricardo Montalban, Anthony Quinn, you know, I forgot this lady from Puerto Rico, but once you get to number 4 or 5, you have a hard time remembering who they were. But it was basically the same people that were there. Pedro Gonzalez as a flunky for John Wayne. But I'm gonna say, so now basically you have the same thing. You got James Olmos, you know, basically running in every show that you come out in, you know, Chish Marin, you know. But, you know, once you start getting after the 5 main Latino actors that we could say we can relate to, they're more Chicano, more Mexican American, that's about it. You know, we don't really have, you know, Chavira, who I knew his father, Chavira had the Chicano Arts Theater here in Austin. So, you know, we feel a kinship to some of that. We're proud, even though Antonio Chavira, the young one, you know, I never knew him, but I knew his father, and his father, you know, is part of the teatro, and I took the Chicano Arts Theater name, you know, from his name that he had here in Austin when he was here. So, you know, but we don't, you know, that's what I see. I would like to see, you know, the blacks, you know, I admire them for the fact that, I mean, they don't have just one, they don't have to, you know, they have their own TV channel, and that's what I foresaw that we would have, which, you know, maybe Robert Rodriguez is going to do it. But, you know, I always thought that we should have, you know, our own TV channel where we could, you know, do our own stories. I thought that we could, you know, we should have a lot of movies by now. Sadly, you know, most of the movies that started coming out and what the Chicano cinema has been known for more is for drug and gang movies kind of thing. That's the genre that has stuck to Chicano cinema. When I go to film festivals, especially Latino film festivals, you know, I hate to tell them, I say, but that's all you see. You know, see the movies about drugs, you see movies about gangs, or the issue with, you know, with immigration, meaning the mojado, the wetback, you know, is coming into, well, very sad stories, but, you know, I think there's at least 100 stories on the same subject. And I don't think, you know, like, I don't mind seeing a good movie, but I hate to go see the same storyline. And, you know, but we know, you know, it's sad, and we know it's true, you know, but it's basically the same story repeated with, you know, different, of how difficult it is for an immigrant to come from Mexico, especially into the United States. So I'm not criticizing, but I'm saying we haven't really explored, we haven't really gone out and produced, you know, different films. Like I started being creative because they dealt with drugs and dealt with things. I try to show the human story of behind why they did what we did or whatever we did. But that's something that that has stuck to us. And that's why in the fourth movie, you know, Lowrider Spring Breakers, I could, it's a little more comedy. I try to get away from it. And then Barrio tells Top Kites and Marbles, a simple little story, but it's more family oriented. It's a little more, instead of dealing with the issue of a social or political issue, I'm trying to get away of the social political issue, and I'm trying to do now, we're doing shorts now, a lot of it because it's easier to produce and do them faster. But we're doing, right now I'm going more into the Native American stories that we have. I have a script that I want to turn into a movie called My Beloved República, which is about the Republic of the Rio Grande, a republic that existed in 1840. And that one tells the true story of Texas to me, because you talk about what happened to the Cherokees, what happened to the Comanches, what happened with the Mexicanos, you know, Santana back then, because he was still alive afterwards, you know, and the Centralistas, Federalistas, the war that was going on, and how Mexicanos treated Indians, you know, because a lot of people think that, you know, we're half Mexicanos, like we say, we have Indian blood, you know, but the Mexicanos even had a bounty in 1840 on the Apache, you know, which you turn in a hairpiece and you would get money, because Mexico didn't, you know, they were having a problem with the Apaches, so that's how they decided to end the problem, is by, you know, have them get their scalps, kill them and scalp them. So, you know, there's a lot of things that they're doing, and we did a little short on the betrayal. That's part of the movie that I want to do, but we did a 20-minute part of it. The betrayal takes the incident that happened in San Antonio in 1840, when Maribu Lamar, second president, had already wiped out the Cherokees and killed their chief and sent him out of Texas. And then Maribu comes and invites the Comanche to San Antonio for a peace treaty. And then when they all showed up there, he ends up killing men, women, and children. And in history, Texas history, you only see like one page of that incident. You know, there's not that much, you know, other than that. And the Comanches really don't really want to talk about it. So, you know, it makes it kind of difficult, but at the same time, we did this to try to show from the Native American point of view, why did they go? Why did they show up? You know, knowing the history of Maribu Lamar, and his first public declaration after he became president was, and you can see in the history book that it says that he wanted to go after the red man, wipe him out, burn their villages, burn their crops, you know, make life hell in Texas so that they would prefer to live anywhere but Texas. And he went after, and he, like I said, as he became president in 1838, by 1839 he had already wiped out the Cherokees that were here, and then he went after the Comanche. And it kind of continued after Texas became part of the United States with the Apache, meaning, you know, Geronimo being the last one. So, you know, there's a lot of stories, you know, the beautiful stories that are in there. And I've created through legends, heard legends, there's this character that I fell in love with, Cuero Duro. And I think that he tells the story with his life, because he got involved with, he's a Carrizo Indian from the Rio Grande, but he got involved with the Comanche and the Cherokee, and with the history that happened in that time. So all this is something that this movie, if we ever get it done, is what I think will be a better picture of what the true history of Texas really is.
Wow. Well, thank you so much, Efrain. And the film that's showing today, Thursday.
Amor Chicano es para siempre. Chicano loves forever. This is, you know, basically in short synopsis is what was in the 70s, you know, especially in my we were doing a lot of things wrong. And meaning, you know, here we're married and you're having affairs and you're partying like you're a single guy. And it seemed like a lot of guys were doing that, you know, especially in the 70s when, like I said, cocaine really hit into the social scene. And you could go to any club, anywhere, in restrooms, outdoor, you know, everybody was snorting like crazy, you know, and it seemed like it was just an epidemic. But everybody was just, disco era was, woo, you know, everybody go wild. And it seemed like everybody went wild, and what we saw in San Antonio. So I showed this because it shows, you know, like you know, while you're partying, you know, we as Mexican American Chicanos, we have this machismo, you know, like, you know, we can do whatever we want, but the woman stays at home and, you know, takes care of the kids, blah, blah, blah. And you expect that to happen. But in this story, you know, we flipped and said, no, the reality is, you know, somebody else is going to walk out with your lady. And basically in Amor Chicano, that's what I'm showing, that a lot of people kind of didn't like it, but they all could relate to it, especially the men that were having those kind of situations, that were in those situations. And I've had people tell me, you know, that hits home, that hits home. And I can understand when they say that hits home, that means that something was going on in their life, you know, and created problems in either their marriage or whatever commitments they had. And in this case, you know, though not only the guy, but the wife also, you know, gets to party. And so that was something new but it was done because Mexico asked me for a love story, and that's what I put together.
Right, and on Saturday we'll see Run Tecato Run at 4, so if y'all are in Austin, come on out for Cine Las Americas and see Efrain Gutierrez.
We will be with Greg Barrios. We will be here hopefully
and
afterwards to answer any questions.
Who's also a San Antonio legend as well.
Yes.
And a frequent contributor to the Texas Observer also. Well, thank you, Efrain.
No, thank you.